Hey, you want to see crazy? I'll tell you. Now, that's a real badge. I'm a real cop, and this is a real fucking gun.
As we know, Lethal Weapon 5 is finally on its way, and this time, Mel Gibson isn't just suiting up as Martin Riggs, he's actually directing the whole thing. That might come as a surprise, but it makes sense when you realize the late Richard Donner, who directed all 4 of the original films, had personally asked Gibson to carry the torch before he passed away in 2021. So, even though it's bittersweet, this next chapter is shaping up to be part tribute, part continuation, and all action. Now, Gibson stepping behind the camera adds something pretty unique, especially because he's been tied to these characters and this world for decades. It's not like hiring someone new who's just a fan of the series, he is the series in a way. So there's definitely a sense that he knows what the fans are expecting. At this point, we know for sure that the movie is moving forward. Gibson confirmed it himself. And the script? That's coming from Richard Wenk, the same guy who wrote The Equalizer. That's a good sign, because Wenk knows how to mix gritty action with just the right touch of humor. And let's face it, Lethal Weapon has always been about more than just explosions and gunfights. It's the chemistry between Riggs and Murtaugh, the buddy cop banter, and the way the story always feels just a little off the wall without going full-blown ridiculous. This time around, the movie's expected to keep that classic dynamic alive while also making room for new story beats. Let's be honest, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover aren't exactly spring chickens anymore, so it only makes sense that the film will probably focus on what it means to be aging legends in a world that's moved on. Will they be pulled in for one final mission? Probably. And it'll be interesting to see how the characters wrestle with being older, slower, maybe even second-guessing themselves a bit more than before. Before we dive too deep into the new stuff, it's worth taking a look back at some fun tidbits from the earlier movies. For instance, remember how Danny Glover's character kept saying he was too old for this shit back in the original 1987 film? The guy was only 40 at the time. Fast forward to now, and he's in his late 70s. That line hits a lot differently now, but in the best way. And believe it or not, Mel Gibson almost didn't play Riggs at all. That role was initially offered to Bruce Willis. He turned it down and then ended up leading Die Hard, which kicked off a whole other action legacy. So if you ever wondered what might have been, well, there's your alternate universe. Then there's Joe Pesci. His character, Leo Getz, was never supposed to be a major player. He was meant to pop in and out for a quick role in Lethal Weapon 2, but audiences loved him so much that he stuck around for the next 2 sequels. That kind of fan-driven character growth just doesn't happen much anymore. Oh, and if you thought Jet Li was fast in Lethal Weapon 4, you weren't imagining things. He was actually moving so quickly during fight scenes that the camera couldn't keep up. The production had to ask him to slow down so the shots would work. Wild, right? There's no official cast list just yet, but it's a pretty safe bet that both Gibson and Glover are on board. Let's be real, they are the heart of the franchise. Without them, it's just not Lethal Weapon. Their chemistry is still one of the best in action movie history, and fans are definitely eager to see where their relationship goes next. As for other familiar faces, there's been talk, though nothing confirmed, about bringing back Joe Pesci as Leo Getz and maybe even Rene Russo as Lorna Cole. If they do come back, it could give the movie a strong sense of continuity, like it's not just banking on nostalgia but actually honoring it. And of course, there's always the possibility that new characters will be introduced, maybe a younger generation of cops or someone who will eventually take the baton. But even if that happens, hopefully it's handled with care, not just as a setup for a spin-off, but as a way to enhance the story. The big hope here is that the movie manages to strike the right balance. It needs to feel like a natural continuation of the story, not just a forced revival. Gibson has said he wants to stay true to Donner's original vision, which is reassuring. There's going to be action, sure, but there's also a strong possibility that the story might take a more emotional turn. Given how much time has passed and where the characters are in life, this could be a more reflective story, something about legacy, aging, and letting go. Maybe Riggs and Murtaugh will finally talk seriously about retirement, or maybe they'll realize that no matter how old they get, they're never really done fighting the good fight. And of course, there'll still be plenty of shootouts, car chases, and one-liners. That's baked into the DNA of Lethal Weapon. It's just going to come with a little more gray hair this time around. So far, no official release date has been set, but based on what we've heard, production might kick off in late 2024 or early 2025. That would likely put the release somewhere between 2025 and 2026. Considering how passionate the fan base is, the studio probably wants to make sure everything is perfect before making a big announcement. Here's the thing, this isn't the first time Hollywood has tried to revive an 80s franchise, and not all of them went smoothly. Remember Terminator Dark Fate? It brought back original stars like Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it still flopped. Why? Because just bringing back old faces isn't enough if the story doesn't connect with the audience. Dark Fate made the mistake of changing the tone too much and messing with the timeline in a way that confused longtime fans. That's something Lethal Weapon 5 will definitely want to avoid. Thankfully, this series has always been pretty grounded compared to something like Terminator, so that risk feels a little lower. But there's another issue to watch for: tone-deaf storytelling. Take Rambo: Last Blood, for example. That movie caught a lot of flack for its portrayal of Mexican characters, and even Rambo's creator criticized it. Lethal Weapon 5 should learn from that and be more thoughtful with its plot. After all, Lethal Weapon 2 took on South African apartheid way back in the day and did it surprisingly well, so there's a precedent for mixing real-world issues into the story as long as it's handled with care. Another potential pitfall? Ending up like The Predator. That movie had action, jokes, and even callbacks, but it lacked heart. It just felt unnecessary, like an add-on instead of a continuation. Even with Shane Black involved, who was part of the original Lethal Weapon crew, it didn't land the way it should have. The editing was a mess, the lighting was bad, and it left a bunch of those loose threads. That's something Lethal Weapon 5 can't afford to do. This isn't just another sequel, it's likely the last one. So it has to feel complete, polished, and meaningful, not just a reunion, but a proper send-off. We also can't ignore how Die Hard eventually ran itself into the ground. A Good Day to Die Hard was a perfect example of how even the most iconic franchises can wear out their welcome. That movie turned John McClane into a generic action hero instead of the scrappy, relatable cop fans fell in love with. If Lethal Weapon 5 tries too hard to be a modern blockbuster, it could end up making the same mistake. What makes this series special isn't over-the-top stunts, it's the characters, the humor, and the emotional weight behind the bullets. At the end of the day, Lethal Weapon 5 is a bit of a gamble, but it's also a rare opportunity. With Mel Gibson directing and the possibility of bringing back the core cast, this could be a fitting tribute to Richard Donner and a heartfelt conclusion to the saga. Whether it ends up launching something new or just gives fans one last ride with Riggs and Murtaugh, there's a lot riding on this one. And honestly, if it nails the tone, respects the legacy, and avoids the traps other revivals have fallen into, it could be one of the few sequels that actually earns its place in an iconic franchise. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.